Welcome, everybody, to another amazing episode of Wellness Warriors. Today, I've got a fellow two-time breast cancer conqueror, Katie Rampen. And Katie has a great story. We actually met at the Truth About Cancer several years ago when it was live before we had to social distance and wear masks and separate ourselves. But since then, she had a recurrence. And so she has a very interesting story. And as always, we like to start with the pain to passion story. So Katie, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is such a thrill and an honor. I mean, you've literally been a mentor of mine, and I've been watching you for years on the Truth About Cancer, and then to meet you in Anaheim. And the only thing I wish we didn't share in common is the two-time thing, right? But here we are, right? And this is why we do what we do, right? To help other women so they don't join our club.
That's right. That's right. All right. So let's start at the beginning. 2012, you were happy
Yeah,
and
so
healthy.
2012. So I was happy and healthy. And really, friends will even say that, like, oh, Katie, she's the one that's done yoga for years and eats right and all that kind of stuff. So I'm thin and how did this happen, right? It must be genetic, right? No, no. And it wasn't, by the way. I actually had my BRCA testing done. And I wasn't. But I will say I was one of those women that I had it in my family, right? So it was on my radar. My grandmothers both had breast cancer in their older ages, right, when they were postmenopausal. So it was on the radar. My mother actually had ovarian cancer. So, they were testing me frequently. Unfortunately, I didn't know what you teach now that I know, that mammograms are harmful. So I had a lot of mammograms early on because they were testing. So it was one of those, my mammogram, they had me come back for more views. They did the biopsy, the whole deal. So in 2012, I was diagnosed with DCIS in both breasts in multiple locations. And basically the upshot of it was, that I really needed to, the best course for me was to have a double mastectomy, which again, even at the time, I was like, wow, that seems super radical for stage 0 breast cancer, which might, you could die with DCIS, right? It could never get out. It's contained in the milk ducts, right? So I could have been fine without doing anything. But I didn't know anything about all of this back then, and they did a very good job of scaring the bejesus out of me.
Right, given to pressure.
And I was under pressure to have surgery yesterday, and it was so many things, right, that they pressured. And again, even with the implants, like if you had told me 20 years ago that I'd have implants in my body, I'd tell you you're absolutely crazy. I will never put a foreign substance in my body. Like, I just don't believe in that, right? But then it was like, well, you're young, and yeah, okay, whatever. So, you make the best choices at the time, right? But I just, now, with knowing what I know, it's like, I want to get to women before they get here, right? Or certainly if they have a diagnosis, that they then, stop, take a moment, take a breath, take time to learn about what you have and whatnot. And, so the pain there was so great, because then when I started doing the research after I had recovered and I learned about you and the truth about cancer and everything, like, oh my God, like if someone had told me like mammograms could cause breast cancer, oh my, I didn't know that. Like, I was going every year, like I was told to. And that if someone had told me the tamoxifen was, an issue, which I had to go on because they said, oh, it's actually was stage 1 on one side of my breast. So for that reason, they promised me, no radiation, no chemo, no drugs if you do a double mastectomy. And I'm like, okay, that's a good trade-off, because I didn't want, even not knowing what I know now, I didn't want to do chemo and radiation. So it just didn't feel right. So anyway, it's just crazy to me now to look back and all the stuff that, again, they're not going to tell you this stuff. But when I learned that, I was like, wow, I would do things maybe differently. And then, so fast forward to this last March, along with the pandemic, right at the same time.
Wow.
I felt like what I teach now is your thing. The best, take your breast health literally into your own hands and examine your breasts every month. Like, that's something everyone can do right now. Does cost nothing. And I found my lump. I was lying in bed one day and like, oh my God, what's that? And I'm like, oh, but even though I was freaking out, I was like, it can't possibly be breast cancer because I don't have any breast tissue left. I removed it all, right?
Hmm.
Oh my God. And then, and then come to find out I had another breast cancer, this time right over my heart. And so the second healing journey for me has been so much more about the steps that I didn't do of yours, and now I have my own system. But basically, yeah, I wasn't looking at the emotional, the stress, you know, and actually doing everything that we both preach, right? I mean, it's hard. Like I tell women, like it's a lot, but
Mhm.
baby steps, right? I mean, I'm teaching my course now, and last week was detoxifying your home. And I even went around my house and I'm like, ooh, here's still the products that are lurking in my home that I need to get rid of. I'm still working at it, but here's the ones I use now that I didn't used to use, and how great they are. And
Right.
it's such an easy switch out. But there's just so much in that when you don't know what you don't know, you can't make choices. And
Correct.
this is the heart of what I want to get to people, is that when you know, then you can make a choice. And it doesn't mean necessarily that you have to throw out everything in your house. It doesn't mean necessarily that you have to stop eating everything you love or never have a drink of wine, but at least like I was having wine with dinner every night, maybe 2 glasses. I didn't know like the connection between alcohol and breast cancer. No one
Mhm.
told me. So now I know, and it doesn't mean, you have to be militant about it, but or the sugar feeds cancer. But now I know that, and so I'm going to think a little harder every time I go to have that treat. Like, do I really want this or need it? And there's so many times that you don't need it, right? Like those birthday parties I used to, when my kids were little, and you'd eat that lousy cake that they give
The
you.
sugary cake.
It didn't even taste good, and you just eat
Right,
it because you're
right.
like, oh, whatever. Oh my God, I would never do that today. Like I just won't eat empty, yucky calories. Like I'm gonna make it count. If I have a dessert, I'm gonna make it count.
So I have a saying that I teach in my community is that you feed your body or feed the cancer. So it makes the choice, pretty simple, pretty easy.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So let's go back to that first time. So 2012, when you first found out. What went through your mind when you first found out that you had breast cancer? How did you feel?
Um, it it's that moment when they tell you that, like even when they took me in the room and said you might have it and we need to do a biopsy, I just was in utter shock. And here's the weird thing, I literally had been one of those people that every year like marched in the American Cancer Society breast, I was very strong supporter of like, which I find funny now, not funny, but I'm not about finding the cure anymore. I'm about preventing it, right? Let's not wait for a cure. I don't think that if people really understand cancer that there'll ever be a cure. There will never
No.
be a pill. There won't be a vaccine. It'll be, let's just prevent it. So that's where I'm at now. And I only support organizations that do that are into prevention. But in that moment, it's like you just really think this can never happen to you, right? Like even
Mhm.
though I was out there, supporting these movements and Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and which I love. You reframed health, breast health awareness, right?
Awareness month, yeah.
That's the better thing. Um, you just don't think it's going to happen to you. And I was just like, wait, what? I breastfed my 2 children. I do yoga. I think I eat healthy, right? But again, like I didn't know all the stuff I didn't know yet. And it's just so devastating because you think like my life is over in that moment, right? Like, am I gonna, and you can't help but think, am I gonna die? I had
Right.
2 young children at the time, and my life was about being a mother. That was my job. I was a mother, and I was like, just being there for them is the most important thing I could ever do, right? It's just, my life became all about my children. So the reason I feel like that got me through my first diagnosis was just my children. Like I just had like, I'm not going to let my children grow up without their mother.
Hmm.
So I have to do whatever I have to do. And if that's a mastectomy, I'm gonna do it, even
Right.
though, I loved my breasts and whatever. Like I had no problem with them. Um, so yeah, you do what you have to do. But I guess what really, now that I know, like, doctors, they're just not doing you any favor. They put so much fear into you, and fear is such, as you know, a low vibration. It's so it's the stress of it all is so
Yeah.
horrible.
Yeah.
And there's not a whole lot of, I mean, I think even my surgeon basically said, well, the good news, the bad news is you're going to have to like go through hell. The good news is, 95% of people survive this at the stage that I was at, because I was lucky.
Hmm.
I caught it early. But even that was like, really, I don't know. It's just, and then the women that I'm helping now, like, I can't even tell you their horror stories from their doctors and everything. And what I'm really teaching women is, you got to advocate for yourself. You got to,
Yeah.
like, if your doctor's not giving what you need, go find another doctor. Like,
Totally.
they work for you.
Totally.
And just, some of them just have horrible bedside manner, and that's detrimental. We all know about the placebo effect. But when a doctor is like negative and like, just, it's just,
Tells you you're
ugh,
going to die a horrible death if you don't do these drugs. Yes. I mean, what does that implant into your subconscious mind, right?
yeah.
And so when you had a recurrence in 2012, um, how was that? I mean, you knew a lot more. Did you feel guilty? Did you have shame? Were you angry? Like what kind of went through your mind when you found out
Yeah,
the
yeah.
second
You mean
time?
2020, this last year when I
Right,
had
the
the recurrence.
second
Yeah.
time, yeah.
Yeah, the
The
second
second.
time. Well, I felt a lot. I think you and I can relate to this. I felt like you. I thought, what the heck? How am I going to even tell people this? They're going to be like, wait, you're the wellness empowerment coach and you have breast cancer again,
Right, right.
Um, and so I felt like, what am I doing wrong? I did. But then, again, I went, but gosh, am I actually practicing everything I preach? No. Um, I was kind of in a toxic relationship that wasn't resolved. I wasn't getting the love and appreciation that I so desperately need. I was stressed out, wasn't actually following. It's just, following everything. And I just, yeah, there was this part of me like, oh, people are going to think I'm a fraud. And, but it was actually, to me, it was kind of a test, really, because the second time around, now they were saying, I had to do, first of all, I was like, wait, what do you mean? Like, I thought you told me, because they literally did, you do a mastectomy, you won't get breast cancer again. Now, they did tell me it can recur, i.e. metastasize. It can move to other parts of your body, and
Right.
then you're really in trouble, is what they tell you. So they really fear you, because I said, if it metastasizes, you're really out of luck, because then we can't take it out anymore. It's everywhere. But I was like, you told me I couldn't get it in the breast again, and here it is in my breast again. But then the next thing is, when you do a lumpectomy, they say you have to do radiation and chemo. And I was like, it's just, then I had to check in with my gut and be like, what came to me was, I don't think I spent the last 8 years of my life learning about all of this to then turn around and do chemo and radiation, right? Which I know will harm my body, right? It
Hmm.
just does. It kills the cancer, but it kills so much more. So the good news is, the second time around, I could advocate for myself. And I went into my surgeon and I basically said, yeah, no, I don't want the savvy scalp put in my breast, because I'm not going to do radiation. I don't want, I want this, I want that. And they agreed to I even listened to, I had heads for my lumpectomy. I listened to, successful mindful, what is it? Successful surgeries, or whatever, one of these, meditations that I was listening to in the background. And would you know it, the surgery lasted just as long as the meditation. It was like way quicker than normal. Like, they told me, how long does it usually last? And it was like in and out. It was super easy.
Good.
Um, and part of that was me just really, even the surgery, because I wasn't even sure I was going to do surgery this time around. But I had to just really check in, and I do what another mentor, she teaches, the surrendering practice, where you really just check in, is this going to benefit my body or not? And in
Mm-hmm.
this case, it kind of was like, since I knew I wasn't going to do all the other stuff, it was like, well, what do I, what can I take from traditional medicine and, alternative? So I'm doing a little bit of everything with this second time round. And
Good,
just,
and that's such a good point, Katie, because some women feel that if they just choose evidence-based natural medicine, that if they step to the other side, that they've failed, like if they end up having surgery or, so that's a good point. It's about balance and being able to, make a wise decision. And I know, that's one of the things that you teach your clients, right? Is the treatment decisions, how to trust your gut and to
yeah,
advocate for what is right for you, because nobody lives inside your head and your heart
no.
other than you, right? So you have to make that right decision. So at what point did you decide that you were going to start helping other women? Where in that 8-year period did that happen?
So I guess it was, so I think I started Katie Rampen's Healthy Families, now what, 3 years ago, something like that. So it was, it was kind of like, yeah, it kind of made sense. Actually, it's interesting because right now there's also what's going on in addition to the Truth About Cancer. There's the Food Revolution Network is doing their summit, and I
Mm-hmm.
also love what they teach about, what you teach, food is medicine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, like just even the other day, I'm like, oh, cinnamon, that fell off my radar. Cinnamon is there's so many great, spices and things that are anti-cancer. But through that, through Ocean Robbins, I learned about uh, my business, what ended up being my visionary entrepreneur business coach, Ryan Eliason. And, and it was kind of like I'd wanted to do this work, but I'd never really thought of making it a business, doing it. And it was like, I tried to get a job sort of doing what I'm doing, and I couldn't find one. So then I'm like, I think I'm just going to do this like myself. And then, he helped me actually make that a reality. And it started with the Healthy Families, because my thought was, again, being a mother, I was like, all these kids out there, they have all, do we think it's a coincidence that there's this huge raise in autism and allergies and all peanut? No,
Obesity.
obesity and all these problems. No. And it's like, and I thought, let's get to the moms and get to the kids and start there. And I thought, if by teaching about how to make kids healthy, I'm sort of teaching the parents too. So it's, anyway, so that's kind of where I started. And really, it's all the same information, right? It's crazy. It's like the same stuff that will prevent breast cancer will prevent heart disease, will prevent Alzheimer's, will prevent, like, I'm listening to all these experts and I'm like, it's all the
All
same
the
stuff.
same,
It's all
exactly.
the same. So really, you just you adapt your simple step, my simple step, and you're on your way to a healthy life. So it wasn't until this last year, though, that I just felt that the universe was telling me with the second breast cancer, that I had some more healing to do. I had some more work to do. And look, I can help other women do this, right? And I should focus on women with breast cancer, because they
You're
and
there.
they and yeah, and they're all, and they're motivated too to actually do something, because you don't want this to come back. You don't want it to reoccur. And I just, what really kills me is all the women that they go through these treatments and then they think they're done. They're going to go back to their life.
Yes.
And it's like, don't treat, it's we know breast cancer, it's not, it's a symptom, it's not the cause. You got to go upstream, find the cause, and change that. If you don't make changes, it's going to come back. And
Yeah.
you know and
And they
sometimes
don't
these
tell
treat
you, yeah,
they
and
don't tell you that,
they
right?
don't
And
tell
I
you about circulating tumor cells or breast cancer stem cells. You cut out the tumor, but you still have circulating cells, and that's what you need to keep addressing to prevent recurrence. And that was a big lesson for me. Now, one piece of the puzzle that we both agree on is the often overlooked piece of the heart and the mind. Healing the
mm,
emotional wounds. That's essential
yeah.
number 4 for me. So, what realization did you have that was such an important part for you that maybe you had overlooked?
Yeah. So, well, I think part of it was the irony that this time the lump was right over my heart. Like literally, it was like last time it was both, but actually the invasive breast cancer was on my right side, but this time the lump is right over my heart, which again made it super easy decision. No, I'm not radiating that. I don't want to damage my heart. Like the heart's right under there.
Right.
So it was just, I just looked at my life and, I had been kind of holding on to living in a relationship that wasn't really working, right? For my kids, but then at what point I'm like, well, is this really supporting my kids to be kind of in this relationship that isn't supporting me, and it's not, right? And actually, so, and just, so I talk a lot about, sort of toxic relationships, or also, it's negativity feeds negativity and whatnot. And I just, I love mindfulness and the whole part, gratitude practices and meditation and yoga. There's just so much there to look at. The other thing for me personally, nature is super healing. So, and I live in, Los Angeles, which is this huge, city type of thing, right? And it's you just sort of forget. But I had the opportunity, over the summer, I went to Hawaii to take care of my parents, and I ended up staying. This was right after my surgery, actually. So it was twofold. I was there to help my ailing father move there, and also sort of to recover and heal my breast cancer. And it was just a transformational 6 months that I was there that, I'm kind of missing now. But just to be in nature every day, and like, I mean, people literally said, I did a couple of these interviews while I was over there, that I was like just glowing, right? Just they were like, oh my God, and I'm like, yeah, because,
So grounded, sunshine, fresh air.
grounded. I went out, I would do yoga on the lawn, in the sun, next to the waves. Like it was really kind of, now that I think about it, it was just incredible.
Yeah,
And
awesome.
I want that for everyone. So what it could just be as easy as just, and vitamin D is so important to our skin. So just get out in the sun for a little bit each day, go take a walk. There's so many things you can do, but for me, like that was the missing part. I just really,
That's
yeah, that
important to
relationship,
nurture.
it's very hard, like right now. So I'm to be separated, from, my partner of over 20 years, but we just it just, I just got to get to a new understanding or level. Like it just wasn't working for me. Like I'm now with a tribe of people, that are what are called visionary entrepreneurs, and or people that are just out there like making a difference for people, and they're just their vibrations are so much higher, right? I just need to be around those people. I mean, you get it too, because sometimes when you're helping breast cancer, so it's very hard because they're very scared and whatnot. But what, and that's kind of, it kind of can bring you down a little bit. And sometimes I worry about that, like, oh, I don't want to have what happened to you. Like you sort of take on their problems. Like I've advocated for a few women that were freaking out. But on the other side, like when they come back with their stories, there was one, she had to get a biopsy, and she was so worried about it and whatnot. And she is, anyway, the long and short of it is, I just gave her some suggestions of how she could do it. And she went to her doctor and she insisted, I want it done this way and this way. And she had it done that way. And I love it when women come back and go, yeah, I empowered myself. I advocated for myself. I think that makes such a difference, right? Like we want to empower ourselves to do, to find, like you said, and again, the gut, we talked about it. It's the second brain, right? So there's a reason when you've got that gut feeling about something, listen to it, because that's what's going to heal you.
So important. So important.
Yeah.
So Katie, you have a free gift for us that we're going to share with our community. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yes. So, well, it's kind of a different one. So the one is I want to tell you about the three. I have a video, a really quick video series called "The Three Things You Need to Know to Prevent Breast Cancer," and really, I'll even cheat. I'll even, it's basically, I talk about how breast cancer isn't mostly genetic, because we know it's not. It's like what, less than 5% genetic, and what epigenetics is all about, because people are like, what's that? I talk about how safe ways to detect breast cancer, and that the reality about certain detections and treatments can actually cause breast cancer, which again most people don't know. And then the third thing I talk about, the lifestyle changes that you can make to prevent breast cancer. So that's like a 3-minute video series. And then when you get that, you also get I have a little PDF. We're talking super simple, because I get it, like it's a lot. Like I've opted in for things and like you never read them. It's a 7-page PDF. You can read it in 7 minutes, and it's my 7 simple steps. Like you get, some people go, yeah, okay, I know this already. No, but if you actually take a little bit of each of those steps, you're on your way. Like you could
Mhm.
actually start right now, today, no cost to you. Just, put it on your fridge, follow these steps, just like your program. It's just great. So I
Yeah.
just,
Simple
it's kind
action
of
steps. That's what it takes,
simple,
right?
simple ample steps. And it's just, yeah, I just tell people baby steps. I'm now leading a course called Breast Health Empowerment Circle. And that is like kind of like your course. Each week it's a 90-minute a week. You do it over 7 weeks, and each week we take a deep dive into each of those steps, because there's so much more than my little, one paragraph about each of them, right?
Right,
So,
right, right.
and then beyond that, you could go at a deep dive into each of those, so there's no end of what, where this could go, but you just got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Just start somewhere.
The knowledge never ends. I'm always learning. I learn something new every week, talking to clients and
Yeah,
researching, so there's always new things.
there's
So,
always new
so
things.
where can people find you? What's your website or do you have
Yeah, so people can find me at on Facebook. I have my main page is called Katie's Healthy Families, which I think I'm going to actually rename soon, because as I told you, I've sort of shifted my focus. But I also have a private Facebook group called Kicking Breast Cancer with Katie. Just request to join. You can join us there. That is more obviously focused on people that are either trying to prevent breast cancer, have had breast cancer, are avoiding recurrence, or people that have breast cancer right now. And again, I fit into all of those categories. So
right,
I'm doing
right.
this, I'm walking, we're all doing this together, right? It's not like I'm not preaching something that I don't know about. I
Yeah,
know well, and unfortunately I know way too much about it, right? I know about all different aspects, because I'm doing a little bit of everything.
yeah. Good for
So
you.
that's the best place. And I'm gonna have, I'm just really slow to there's just too many things to do in the day. But I will have, eventually you can look for, katierampen.com. I'm gonna have a website, but
All right.
it's on the back
Well,
burner.
Katie, I know it's a journey. So thanks
It's
for
a
taking
journey.
the time and the courage to be able to, help other women, because it's not easy. It's definitely a labor of love, as I kind of coined that term. But
Yes.
thanks for all that you're doing, and appreciate, your time today and sharing your
Well,
story.
thank you so much for having me. This has been so awesome. I love
Good.
it. Thank
All
you.
right. Till next time, this is Dr. V sending you a big healing heart hug. Bye for now.